So, ladies and gentlemen, we're here with my buddy Harpreet.
Thank
Welcome
you for
to the
having
show.
me, Luke. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, good to see you again, dude.
It is. It's really good to see you, and I'm excited to see you again, hopefully, in next weekend.
Yeah, that's right. We'll be up in Tahoe at the Amp Coil Summit. So it's funny, you guys. We just, he just flew down from San Francisco. He shows up, and I was taking Cookie to the groomer, and so I was about 15 minutes late. And I said, "Dude, I left the door open. You can go ahead and just go in." And he said, "No, man, I'm going to sit outside and meditate and get some vitamin D, get some sun." I was like, "That's my kind of guy." So I got home, and then we've been shooting the shit for like an hour and a half or something.
Yeah, time flies.
And then we decided, well, he suggested, "Hey, do you want to meditate? You're going to meditate in the afternoon." And I thought, well, should we do it before or after? And so we opted to do it before, but now we're totally spaced out. So we'll see how this goes. But speaking of spaced out, what we're going to be talking about today is sleep, dude.
Yeah, sleep.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yep, getting those theta waves.
I got some kind of crappy sleep last night. Well, good sleep, but not enough of it. And, man, I'm feeling it today. So let's talk a little bit about your background. So
Sure.
your family is Indian.
Yes.
And you're a Sikh. So those of you watching on the YouTube video, you would see Harpreet is wearing this really dope turban. By the way, I want a turban tying lesson after this. Don't let me forget.
Okay. I should have brought an extra turban.
And so were both of your parents from India?
Both of my parents are from India. Yeah, both born in Punjab.
And then you were born here?
I was born here. I was born in basically the most opposite climate in Minnesota.
Oh, my God, dude. How did your parents from India end up in godforsaken Minnesota? No offense to people in Minnesota.
Yeah.
I'm just talking climate-wise.
I think they were like, we've never seen this thing called snow, so let's go check it out. No, my dad, he came to the U.S. on a scholarship for his PhD, and he went to Stony Brook, and then company Honeywell actually recruited him. This was back in the 70s, and they had a job in Minnesota. And, when you had a one-way ticket here and you get a job offer, you sort of just take it. So that's what happened. They ended up in Minnesota, but my mom had never seen snow. And so she gets there and she's just like, "What do you mean we need gloves? What are gloves?"
Right. Wow.
So she's like, "Nah, you don't need to spend money on that," and so, but I think, look, the cool thing about Minnesota is, it's, it is in the middle of the country, but it has, I think, some of the most friendliest and awesome people. So there's definitely some Midwestern love out there.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I just had a meeting with Cody from Podcast Masters that produced this show.
Yeah.
I think he might be there.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was somewhere in the Midwest. But I agree. The salt of the earth, man, the coolest people.
Yeah. Cold nose, warm hearts.
Yeah,
So.
that's funny. Yeah, with my business school of style that we were talking about earlier, I guess legally you can't say you discriminate against people from the coast, but let me just say, if we ever, over the past 10 years of doing business, if we ever interviewed a potential hire that was from the Midwest, that was like 10 points in their favor.
Yeah.
Just for the fact if they're like, "Oh, I'm from Illinois," we're like, "Okay, cool, we're halfway there."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Dude,
they're probably going to be hard workers, have
super
integrity,
hard workers, and they're more modest. I went to school in the Midwest too. I went to University of Michigan, and I ended up going to Wall Street, sold my soul to the devil for a little bit. And I just remember when I got to Wall Street, I was working at Morgan Stanley, a big bank. It was so funny. They're like, "No, we love kids from the Midwest." They're like, they just work hard. They put their head down. They don't ask a lot of questions, and they don't think they went to some super hot shot Ivy League school. So they tend to be more down to earth as well.
Yeah, I think so. It has to do with the lineage of those old school American values.
Yeah.
Those old timey values that we used to think were so corny, they actually turn out to be valid.
Totally.
The golden rule and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So okay, before we get into the sleep stuff, a little bit more in your background, and I, of course, want to talk about Oura, this ring that I wear all the time that everyone asks me, "What's that ring? That's a cool ring." I'm like, wow, it's dope that I have a ring that's has biohacking purposes, but it doesn't look hideous, which is amazing. We'll get into that later, but coming from my background,
of course,
I like stuff that looks cool too and
so
has a function. So when you say you sold your soul on Wall Street, you got out of college, you went there. What did you do on Wall Street? I don't even quite understand what Wall Street is or does exactly. So give me a little bit of that.
There's this joke every day someone walks in the Goldman Sachs building, a kitten dies in heaven. So
Damn.
Yeah. So no, I mean, look, there's a lot of different things on Wall Street. I spent 1 year doing investment banking. That's sort of when you stay up really late for some absurd reason. You become super sleep deprived and angry and frustrated, and you make a lot of spreadsheets on financial models for companies. So I did that just for a year. Honestly, that's sort of when my interest in sleep really hit me. I probably got about, on average, 4 hours of sleep a night. In the course of 1 year, I gained about 40 pounds. So almost a pound a week. And I'm not a big guy, right? I'm 5'5" on a good day, and depending on how I tie my turban, maybe I could get an extra inch out of it.
Yeah, you get a couple inches with the turban height, dude. That's a good point. That's a good point.
So for some reason it's become a little bit less this way, but there is a culture of just working hard, getting stuff done for clients, and a lot of it's financial advisory. A lot of time companies are buying other companies. They need bankers to evaluate the deal, help structure the deals and stuff like that. So just like you go to buy a house, you need to go talk to a bank to loan some money. Companies go to buy other companies, right? Or they try to IPO, or they try to sell some more stock to unlock some value, and so they'll go to bankers. But they're just on Wall Street. So I did that for a year, and then I moved to something that's called the buy side, or in this case, a hedge fund. I basically, worked at a hedge fund for 9 years after doing that 1 year of investment banking. And there I got to actually just evaluate technology companies. We actually invested in them. They're all public market, companies like Google, to companies that make sensors that go in wearable devices out in China. It was a lot of fun, learned a lot. At the time I did have a decent amount of student debt. So that's part of the reason I got into finance. I wanted to pay off that debt quickly. I think I sort of got wrapped up in the rat race and woke up 10 years later and realized, wow, my 20s have gone by. I'm sure that the money was good, right? That's why most people go to Wall Street, but the money wasn't making me happy anymore. And that's not where my passion was. I studied electrical engineering in college. I wanted to get back into tech. I had a huge interest in health, just going through some of my health issues, gaining weight, losing weight, trying different diets, even just as a kid, trying to play sports, not that athletic naturally. So I was always interested in performance, and, actually met the guys at Oura, and they had just released their first generation product on a Kickstarter, and was sort of blown away by the technology. I knew a lot about the technology space, and particularly wearables. And there was something really unique about focusing on sleep, not focusing on activity first, like most wearables are, that I thought there was a huge use case there that I could relate to. And also from an accuracy standpoint, measuring your heart rate from your finger, there's a reason why all hospitals do that, right? So if you walk in a hospital, you stay overnight in the ICU, right? Your heart rate and your oxygen levels are measured from your finger. And I knew...
Oh, that's true. They have one of those little clips on your on the tip of your finger. Oh, interesting.
And so there's a reason
funny,
they do that.
When I'm on an airplane, I use a pulse oximeter.
Yeah,
and it goes on the tip of your finger like that. I never thought about it.
Yeah. Turns out that the pulse signal from your fingers are about 50 to 100 times stronger than the wrist. And so it's actually just a much better place to measure your heart rate and your data, and that's why every hospital does it.
Trippy.
Yeah.
So it sounds like the perfect storm that you ended up in this company and in the field that you're in now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy.
It definitely was crazy. A little bit of, I like to call it fate.
And also I'm always sort of envious of guys that understand business, being a business person myself I think I learned about business from podcasters, you know what I mean? Like entrepreneur podcast or whatever. I'm learning all the time. Like, what's an IPO? I just I don't know stuff like that.
Sure.
So when I look at a guy like Dave Asprey went to business school,
and
then was also into health and has just crushed it with a company like Bulletproof.
Of course.
I go, oh man, that must be nice to have a fundamental understanding of the way businesses work and taking on capital and just that whole thing. I mean, I got lucky with my first business and it's been successful, thank God. And it's lasted 10 years, as I was saying, but I still don't really know the ins and outs. I have a very fundamental understanding of when something has value and there's a market for that value and how to get people to buy that value.
Yeah, and that's where business starts, right?
Yeah, so I understand the fundamentals, but I think it's cool that you kind of understand when you saw Aura, you're like, I want to get in on that because you understand the potential from the business side too.
Yeah, definitely.
It's cool.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, thank you for the background there. That's interesting, And so basically you survived in New York City for 10, 11 years then.
11 years, yeah.
And your health. I mean, no wonder you needed help with your health. I love New York City, but dude, it's one of the unhealthiest places on earth.
Yeah.
Maybe LA might be second. I mean, excluding obviously places like Bangkok and some
Sure.
other huge cities in the world that I'm sure have worse air and things like that. But
yeah, I mean, look,
yeah.
it's a city that never sleeps, and I think that has a lot of issues when it comes to health, right? And it's hard not to when you're there. Everything's always sort of a party. There's always something going on, and there's an energy about it. Like, you do when you go there, your blood pressure goes up, like you're sort of on tilt to some degree. And there is an energy, and that was great at a certain point in my life, but yeah, glad to have moved past it.
That's interesting. The city that never sleeps. I never made that correlation as a negative thing. Because when you think of that, you're like, oh, what a dope city. No one sleeps. It's not boring.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
Now my interpretation of that is, oh my God, it's a city where no one sleeps. That's horrible.
Yeah.
So do you think culturally, when we talk about sleep, that are we coming out of that phase in our culture where you're a badass if you don't sleep? Bro, I only slept 2 hours last night. I'm crushing it.
Yeah.
Was that a part of the culture when you were working in finance?
Are you kidding? Without a doubt, right? I think people used to like, certain in investment banking, especially, it was like, oh, that kid can pull 2 all-nighters in a row. Oh, let's get him to work on this deal because he'll just crank. He'll just work really hard. We used to call it you'd bank. He's going to bank so hard. It was, yeah, for sure, definitely a culture like that. I think it's starting to slowly change. I think there's other people that are starting to bring sort of this, this revolution to, no, we sleep for all these reasons that we'll get into. That you're not tough. Actually, that's pretty stupid, right? It's a sure way. Life's sort of a marathon. It's not a sprint. And so I think, when you're used to sort of in this sprint mentality in sort of corporate America sometimes, right, it ends up having a negative impact on your health and sort of actually your productivity, funny enough, right? So I think it's starting to change. I think people like Ariana Huffington, she's in New York. She started bringing a lot of light to it with some of the issues she had from overworking. So it's starting. I don't think we're quite there yet. But I do think we will be in, call it, 5 years. So it's, I like to look at Google Trends. You can sort of see what people are searching. Super interesting. If you search sleep, over the last 8 years, the amount of queries in the U.S. have doubled. And if you look at that versus something like running, there's now more people searching for sleep than running. So to me, it's like the trend is starting. People are starting to learn about it. And I think part of the reason is because we're getting less and less of it now as a society.
Wow, that's interesting. You got to teach me how to track the Google searches.
Yeah. I think it's like trends.google.com.
Really?
Yeah,
oh, that's
yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So why, it's interesting first off, actually, I want to back up.
Yeah.
It's interesting that a couple of the coolest technologies in health have come from Finland, of all places. Another one of my guests is from a company called Human Charger,
yeah.
right? I have, I think, 3 or 4 of them. I use that thing just about every day. I used it today.
Yeah.
I plugged the Human Charger blue light in my ears as I drove to my Kundalini yoga class, and just because I hadn't gotten much sleep and I wanted to wake up and be alert. And then there's Oura Ring from Finland. And am I missing one? Am I forgetting about? Is there another one?
There's a bunch.
Oh,
right?
It's Four Sigmatic.
Four Sigmatic. Yeah.
My audience knows them well.
Yeah.
They're it's not a technology company, but another
health.
A juggernaut of a company that's emerged in the health industry. So it's funny.
So I think there's a reason for that.
Okay, what is it?
Yeah, so what's interesting on the sleep side or light side, if you look at Human Charger, Finland and most of the Nordics, it's either, really, really sunny most of the year and then it's super dark. So I was just there two weeks ago and it was sunlight till, 3, 4 a.m. and then gets a little gray for maybe an hour and then it's sunlight again. When I'll go back in the winter, it's going to be complete opposite, right? And so it's going to be dark all the time. And so they've been studying, there's health issues that happen with sort of the light changes like that. Your circadian rhythm does get disrupted. So they've been studying it, I think, longer than most people have, just because their society has had to deal with it. I mean, talk about seasonal depression. You don't get that here in LA, but when it's dark 24/7, you do, right? And cold.
I can't imagine. I would lose my shit, bro. Like living in Finland in the winter.
Yeah.
It's like there's a couple months that go by and it just, you barely get a little dawn, right? From what I understand, talking to my Finnish friends, they said, it's sort of like dusk or dawn for a couple hours and then it's just dark again.
Yeah, right.
Oh my God.
So I think that's one of the reasons. So particularly around sleep or like Human Charger, just with wakefulness, they've done more research on that than most other countries have. I think, when it comes to just overall health, they are an extremely health conscious society. I think they are a progressive society. They were the first ones to test things like universal basic income. I think they have amazing air quality. It's, I think, the cleanest air in the world, is in Finland. So I think they just really, when it comes to sort of living a sustainable, long-term, happy and healthy life, like, the Finns are doing something right. So I think just their interest and their passion for health and knowing how, just how you feel every day, that's just something that really drives them to learn more and more.
That totally makes sense, yeah. And I just love Finnish people. When I first moved to Hollywood, I used to listen to a couple rock and roll bands from Finland. There was a band called Hanoi Rocks and another one called Smack.
Yeah.
And I moved to Hollywood and just one thing led to another. I ended up meeting the guys in those bands and playing music with them and stuff.
No way.
Yeah, and these are bands like I had their posters on my wall when I was in high school and stuff. It was so fun. But for some reason, I ended up knowing a lot of Finnish people. I think it's when you have immigrants that are from a small country like that, and there's a bunch of Finns in LA, or even neighborhoods where there's a bunch of Indian people.
Actually, even Minnesota has a ton of Finns.
Really?
Similar weather. It gets
that's
really
right.
cold.
That's right. Right.
A lot of lakes.
So I have this real connection to Finnish people, and then I found out in my early 20s that I'm part Finnish.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, it's funny.
Okay.
But I was so proud. My grandma, was all into the family history and stuff, and I'm part Swedish as well. So she went back to Sweden and went to all the old churches and looked up the family records, and lo and behold, she found that we had some ancestry in Finland as well as Sweden. And I was so proud and so excited to share with my Finnish friends that she had found some traces of our family origin in a place called Turku. I think it's called Turku Obu or something, right? So I told my friends and they all just started laughing. They're like, oh, the asshole of Finland. It's like the worst place in Finland, according to them. And they showed me on a map like how Finland looks like a body, and then the butthole is actually like Turku, where my ancestors were from. So I stopped bragging about that when I met Finnish people.
Got it.
Found another correlation, perhaps, with these technologies that we could talk about. Did you like Helsinki?
I like Helsinki a lot. Our company actually is headquartered in Oulu.
Oh, okay.
Which is but we have an office in Helsinki too. Oulu's an hour north, so you get even closer to the North Pole. So it tends to be a little bit cooler there and, darker in the winters, but yet also sunnier in the summers. I think Finnish people, I feel blessed. It's a super unique culture. I think they're extremely resourceful because they're the smallest country in the Nordics. So even within the Nordics, I think they're just really innovative. They know that they sort of have to, they're not going to outnumber, their enemies. If you think about some, the wars that were fought back against at one point the Swedes, right? Or even against the Russians. I think they're extremely resourceful, really cunning. They work really, they have the sense of community working together. I feel super privileged to be working with them.
That's neat. Yeah, one of these days I want to get over there and visit my friends.
Yeah, man, we'll have to go.
I would love that. Well, they have this biohacking thing, and this year they moved it to Canada.
Oh,
this biohacking conference. Yeah, I was going to go speak.
To Toronto.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Arena.
I was going to go speak at it, and I was super excited to visit my friends in Helsinki, and then it got moved, and I thought, it was at the same time as another event, so I'm going to wait till it's back in Finland.
Cool.
So when we talk about sleep and, a company producing technology and picking sleep, I guess it's meaningful in Finland, but I want to talk about why sleep is so important, because I think a lot of people still don't realize that it has such a huge impact on their lives. And it's something I'm discovering more and more after all of the supplements I've tried and all the biohacking. I swear to God, the most powerful thing I've ever found is just a good night's sleep. Like you can't hack that.
No, well, maybe you can. We'll talk about that later. But look, I think if you think about sleep, I like to think about it as a pill. Because, unfortunately, in our society, we're used to taking pills. And if I said, I can give you a pill, Luke, I got this pill for you. It's going to increase your memory. It's going to make you more effective at work or whatever you do. Actually, it's going to increase your testosterone, right? It's going to lower your blood pressure, and it's going to help prevent cancer. I mean, who wouldn't want to take that pill? Like, I mean, would you want to take that pill?
I take pills that each claim to do one of those things already.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. So that pill is sleep, right? Yet, unfortunately, right, more than a third of us now are getting less than 6 hours a night, and the ramifications on your health is huge. It's insane. I mean, if you just look at memory recall alone, it's something like your memory recall will be less than 50% if you get 6 hours versus 8 hours. Which is insane, and we'll dive into the science as to why that is, right? But it's to me, it's just it's something that we sort of take for granted because you do it every night. But and we all know it has an impact on how we feel and what we do the next day. But the health ramifications are huge, and actually that's why we as a company decided to focus on it. To us, I think when we started the company, and it was started in 2014, I think at the time most activity trackers were activity trackers, right? Sleep tracking wasn't a thing, 4 years ago. And, I think if you take a step back and you actually look at it, well, that has more of an impact on your health than, 1 day's worth of activity, right? Of course, all these things work better together, right? And we'll talk activity, diet, supplements, right, and sleep. But it has a huge impact on sort of anything that you're trying to do in your life. Like right now, I used to, when I was in my early 20s, let's say, or even in college, I was trying to lift weights and get really strong, right? Like every, 18-year-old kid at some point tries to do. And sleep is super helpful for muscle repair, right? Half your testosterone and majority of your growth hormones released in your sleep, right? So to me, that was my reason to sleep better, right? That was what was important to me at that time. Now, I need to be on top of my game. I need to be on top. I need to be there with my team. We're thinking of new things all the day, facing new problems, and within the company, whatever issues we might be trying to do and solve on the app side, or something that we're trying to do from a marketing standpoint. And I need to be sharp for my meetings. I need to be there for my team. And so I think for anyone that's regardless of what you're trying to do, that sleep is going to help you do it better, right? So do you want to be a better boyfriend? I do. Or girlfriend? Guess what? Sleep actually helps you with emotional balance, right? If I get a poor night of sleep, I'm snappy to everyone, right? I'm snappy to my colleagues. I'm snappy to my, my parents. I'm snappy to my girlfriend. And I know that's not the best version of myself, right? If I want to be more productive and think of new things I haven't thought about from a creative standpoint, well, sleep helps me do that, right? If I want to be, actually when it comes to losing weight, right? There's a huge impact, and we should dive deep on that science because I think it's super interesting on the effect of sort of lack of sleep and actually your increase in glucose levels in your weight.
Let's dive into that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's something I don't know a lot about. It's, I've never been in the kind of shape I would like to be.
Sure.
So I don't want to say I've ever been where I look in the mirror and go, dude, you're perfect.
Yeah.
Always a little fine tuning, but I've never really struggled with being, chronically overweight or
Sure.
something. But I know that's a huge issue for some people. And I think it's a confusing issue because, I just need to exercise more or cut my calories or become vegan or become keto or whatever. I don't really hear people talk about sleep in correlation to weight loss and stuff. So let's talk about how
so I think it's one of the most fascinating, actually, like metabolic sort of, catastrophes that happens when you don't get sleep. So I'll start off by talking about these two hormones. They're called ghrelin, right, and leptin, right? And ghrelin is actually sort of what is going to, it drives your hunger, right? So sort of how hungry you are. So, and then, leptin actually ends up driving your satiety, right? It's a hormone that says, okay, yeah, you're actually feeling full. So when you get less sleep, they go in complete opposite directions. So you will actually, your body will start to release more ghrelin. So it's going to drive you to eat more. You're hungrier, right? And then when you eat, actually your leptin release isn't as strong. So you don't feel as full. So you're already now programming your body to basically say, oh, I need to eat more, right? And not only because I feel more hungry, but when I eat, I don't feel full. So it's oftentimes when, if you start to pay attention to that and you start to realize that, you'll be like, wow, yeah, when I get less sleep, I'm craving sugary foods the next day or fatty foods, something that's super caloric dense, right?
That's true, actually.
Yeah.
Now that you say that, if I'm smoked from lack of sleep, I've never correlated the craving, but I say I have definitely less discipline in walking by something that I don't want to eat and eating it anyway. I'm tired. I'm just like, whatever, I'm tired. I just need to eat.
You have this hormone that's being released in your body that's telling you to eat more. It's literally telling your brain, it's killing your willpower, right? And so that's just the first part, right? Or the first and second part, ghrelin and leptin. I think what's really fascinating then is what happens after you eat, actually what happens to your glucose response. So, we have these beta cells that are inside the pancreas, right? And those beta cells are responsible for releasing insulin, right, into the bloodstream to take care of actually the glucose that's there. And so it turns out when you get less sleep, the effectiveness of those beta cells, they're less effective when they're released. So they actually won't clear, right, as much. The insulin that once is released from the beta cells, the actual receptor on that insulin won't be as effective, right? So it actually won't take away as much glucose. And then also, not only that, actually the signaling, right, to these beta cells when you get less sleep is actually subdued. So, you're hungrier, you feel less full, so you just keep craving more food. And then when you eat it, right, your body isn't releasing as much insulin, and the insulin that it is releasing isn't as effective. So it ends up being this like terrible sort of negative snowball, that makes you crave crappier foods. And so I think when you look at our population of pre-diabetes, before people are diabetic, and this is type 2, not type 1, right? It's about people project it's going to reach 100 million Americans by 2020. If you look at the amount of Americans that are getting less than 6 hours of sleep, guess what? It's about 30%. So I think there's to me, it looks like a pretty clear correlation between sort of pre-diabetes and type 2 diabetics, right, and the lack of sleep. And I think all the research out there sort of shows that.
When you were overweight, did your improving your own sleep have anything to do with you shedding that weight?
Huge.
Yeah?
Yeah, huge impact. Yeah. I mean, look, I know one thing, I definitely gained a lot of weight, right? And I wasn't actually eating that much worse because I was just strapped to a chair, right, in an office, right? So it wasn't like, I was eating tons of food and stuff like that. Like, no, I was, working, and I'd, for the most part, I was trying to eat somewhat healthy, eat a salad, maybe every once in a while I'd have a sandwich. But I would just keep gaining weight. And so actually, when I started to get my, pay attention to my sleep and get a lot of other things in check and actually get active again, it was instrumental in losing weight. And I think a lot of people, you do a couple things right, like you might be eating right and you might be working out really hard, but if you're not getting that sleep, like your body's literally not in the best metabolic state that it can be.
And what about things like cancer and other diseases? How's sleep related to that?
I mean, there's a ton of chronic disease. So I'll start with Alzheimer's, then I'll move to cancer. So Alzheimer's, it actually turns out there's something called beta amyloid. And beta amyloid is this plaque that actually develops in your brain. And it's cleared away actually each night during sleep. And so it turns out, the brain doesn't, we don't have a lymphatic system for the brain. It's not like it sweats like your skin, right? And so what we realized and what was discovered actually just in the last 5 years is we have this thing during sleep. It's called the glymphatic system. So it's actually when your brain clears away all the toxins and plaque. That all happens when you sleep. And it turns out, particularly in deep sleep, this one plaque, beta amyloid, that's actually when it's cleared away. So it turns out when you actually start to get even just less sleep, but less deep sleep as we age, that's one of the reasons that we actually start to forget things more. And now it's been, shown that actually low levels of deep sleep are leading to sort of increased levels of beta amyloids. So I think that one is pretty interesting for Alzheimer's. I think for cancer, actually Matt Walker has done a bunch of this. He runs Berkeley Sleep Lab, sort of showing that actually these killer T cells, right, that are sort of these natural cancer-fighting antibodies that we have, right, they're actually replenished and restored when we sleep as well. And so that there's been a direct link with lack of sleep and to also a suppression then of your own killer T cells. So it's pretty crazy. I mean, it's pretty insane. There's a lot of other things related to cardiovascular disease, but I don't want to get too far into,
No, I love it. I love it. I mean, dude, this show, I like going into the crazy detail.
Yeah.
Because, a number of reasons. One, because I think that it just provides a lot of benefit to the listeners.
Totally.
And the other one is when you have guys like you that are experts in a particular niche topic and they go on a lot of podcasts, everyone just will skim over because they want to keep it into an hour. Yeah. But I don't care about it being an hour.
All right, let's talk here. All right, we're going to go there. You want to go?
I want to get the real shit. Because here's the funny thing is I've had people on and I'm like, okay, shows are supposed to be an hour. That's when I started out podcasts. And it's like everyone said, it needs to be an hour. I said, okay. And so I'd have someone on and I would find myself watching the clock and wanted to skate over a topic like cardiovascular disease, as was just mentioned. Oh, let's skip it. And then I think, oh, well, we'll do another interview down the road and then we'll cover the stuff we missed. And then at one point I thought, I don't want to do that because I want to just cover everything with you one time and then I'll do another topic that then I don't have to cover sleep for another 2 years because I already nailed it with Harpreet. So,
Sure, yeah.
So I like going in
let's
detail.
go. So to me, I actually think memory is fascinating.
Okay, let's cover that.
So turns out actually during your sleep is when your brain consolidates your memories, the things that actually happen during the day. So for example, during REM sleep, your brain is actually playing like it's like a video, recorder, and it's playing it back. And so it actually, during REM sleep, your brain is sort of playing everything that happened, some of the key memories during the day at 3x the speed. Right. So it's sort of crazy.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's insane, right?
That's dope.
And it's repetition, right? It's because, all right, just like anything else in life, you do it again and again, you're going to start to remember it, right? And so that's what happens during sleep, especially during REM sleep. So to me, I thought that is just something that's fascinating and starts to make you think, oh, I see. So when I get less sleep, that's not happening as much at night. So I won't remember as much the next day, right? So it won't be as effective. And so we had this one kid at Michigan, right? And I studied electrical engineering, right? So I was a nerd in college, right? And Percy was this, just crazy, we called him a freak. He was doing a triple major, right? And he got 1 PhDs and 2 master's degree in 4 years. Right. And he we used to have these engineering exams that everyone would like, sort of the average would be 60%. And Percy always, in every single test, he got 99. And so I started asking Percy, I'm like, dude, we played soccer together. I was like, Percy, like, what do you do to study? And he was like, I do one thing that is like key to everything. He's like, I sleep 9 hours a night. Right. And I'm like, really? I'm like, dude, it's college. Like, people are out. We're like, we're playing video games at night and stuff like that. He's like 9 hours every single night. That's one thing I just don't break. And I found it myself. I actually, my first few exams in school, when I got to college, I was, out late, and I didn't actually drink, but I was like playing a ton of video games and just hanging out with friends. Right. And dude, literally failed all my first midterms. And, I met Percy and I was like, just trying to learn. I was trying to hack it, right? I was like, oh, what are kids doing that are acing it? He's like, I get 9 hours of sleep every night. And then he was like, I also don't study, right, the night before an exam. And I was like, huh, that's super interesting. And it turned out like there's a reason for this, that actually your memory consolidation happens over several nights, not just one night, right? And, if you get more sleep, you're going to remember those things and be able to apply them better the next day, right? And so I know this now because I'm, a CEO at a company that's focused on helping people improve sleep. But it was fascinating to be able to see that. And then there's been a lot of correlations out there. I think Ben Smar out of Berkeley, he's done a lot of great work sort of showing that lack of sleep is directly affected to your grades. And that's probably because a lot of it comes back to memory recall. So to me, I think just what happens to your brain at night when you sleep is pretty amazing. And memory to me is actually like, we all sort of take it for granted, right? Until we start to lose it as we get older. And so knowing that sleep is so important for literally memory and, how you're affected the next day, how you remember things and get smarter as a human, to me is just something that's sort of taken for granted.
That's wild. It's something that I struggle with a lot is memory.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't need a study to tell me, dude, when I don't get enough, it's not just it's not like the hours too, it's the quality of the sleep.
Yeah.
Because I can be in bed for 10 hours and have crappy sleep and I still feel horrible. Whereas if I just crush a 7-hour night,
yeah, and
I get some really great sleep, then, it's worth more value wise. But man, my memory is toast when I don't get good sleep. So that's just unequivocally true. That's just the way it is. But I didn't really know why.
Yeah.
So in terms of sleep, when I'm tracking my sleep on my Oura Ring, for example, we've got a couple different markers, and one of them will be REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep,
correct,
which is like a lighter sleep as I understand. And then you have your deep sleep. And me personally, I find it really strange because some nights I feel like I slept like a rock, but I'll get a really low score on my deep sleep. So do we actually experience deep sleep and REM sleep as that subjectively? Or is that not even how we interpret them?
It's really hard. I think, if you look at some of the research that's done, people's perceptions of how they sleep and the reality of how they sleep are two very different things. So it is one of those things that turns out not to be something that you can do sort of subjectively. So I think, as far as the stages of sleep, they all have their purpose. And actually even turns out how you stage has a big deal to do. Your brain was meant to go from sort of these, you're awake, right? You tend to be in sort of a higher frequency, right? North of sort of 15 hertz, right? And as you sort of start to drop, that frequency starts to drop and you go into this deep sleep stage. Right. And then that normally happens in sort of the first half of the night is when you'll have most of your deep sleep. And then actually, some of your memory consolidation, happens later in the night. And so the REM cycles will get longer and, they'll get more prolonged when you sleep. And frankly, actually waking up in REM, for example, like it does sometimes when you sleep for 10 hours or 12 hours even, you're like, oh, I feel great, right? But your REM cycles actually get longer and longer. And so you're more in this dream state. So it's actually like, more, sometimes you feel groggy when you wake up. So, we track all the stages of sleep. So there's REM, rapid eye movement, or the dream state. So that's when your like prefrontal cortex is shut off, your sort of the army general of your brain is sort of turned off, and you get to just the brain is going wild, right? It's replaying all these memories, right? It's having this dreamlike, this euphoric, almost like drug-like state, right? And sort of when all these dreams are happening, right? That's during REM sleep. But there's 4 stages of non-REM sleep. So sleep scientists were very clever and they called it REM and non-REM. And so non-REM sleep, there's 4 stages, but the first 2 stages are called light and, stages 1 and 2, and then deep is stage 3 and 4. And there's more muscular repair, from what we know about sleep, there's more muscular repair, there's more testosterone release, growth hormone release, right, during sort of deep sleep. And so that's vital. You'll actually start to see this. Days you exercise and you're extremely active, you'll probably see higher deep sleep. Right. And you can see that on the Oura Ring. And then days that you're not, and maybe you've done a lot more mental work, right, you might actually see that your REM sleep is higher. So your brain is, smarter than you think, right? So it knows it's actually, it's doing the right thing and putting yourself in the right stages, right? Hopefully, right? Most people, it's fine at doing that based on what you're doing that day and what it needs to do for you to perform tomorrow. So, it's a pretty cool, it's a pretty cool thing. It's sort of, how you remember everything and how you sort of rejuvenate yourself emotionally, physically, mentally for the next day. It's all because of sleep.
In terms of those 4 stages of sleep, do you happen to know how those correlate with brain waves?
Yeah. So the first, when you're awake, you're typically north of 15 hertz. So your brain is sort of, not on fire, but it's like it's firing, right? At anywhere from I think 15 north of 15 to 50 to 60 hertz. As you start to get ready for sleep, like
is that beta? Do you know the correlation between the beta, alpha, theta?
Yeah,
delta,
actually, so delta is deep. So I think in stage 3 and 4, right, that'll be your deep sleep, right? So that's your delta, and your brain waves actually slow down to I think it's as low as 2 hertz, but I believe anything sub 4 hertz is classified as deep sleep. REM sleep, actually, funny enough, it's sort of like you're awake. It's sort of not as high, but it's in between sort of 15 and 30 hertz. And then there's light sleep. And I forget, frankly, like light sleep I know is sub, greater than 4, but sub 15 hertz. I don't know. I forget sort of if it's theta or beta. I actually forget. I should know that. But I'm a numbers guy. So right. I remember all the numbers and the frequencies.
That's funny because for me, like when you're like, and fucking hertz, I'm like, my eyes just glaze over
and you're
I
like,
have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah. But if you showed me a photo of theta, delta, beta, the brain waves and even the names, alpha, I totally remember those. It's funny. It's just a different orientation to the same data. But one of the reasons that I asked is when you were describing REM sleep, where you're in that euphoric place where you're, the governor, the general, I think, as you said, if your brain shuts off and then the creative juices just kind of flow. What you just described is what happens to me when I meditate on a good day. Like when we were just meditating, I wasn't asleep, but I wasn't awake.
Yeah.
If something happened in the room, I was aware of it, but I was also dreaming and processing all of these different thoughts and creative ideas and just having the best time.
Totally. So it's interesting, right? Because when you're awake, you're in that, your brain is sort of in that from 15 to 60 hertz range, right? So it is, hertz is frequency, so it's how many times per second is something firing, right? So the neurons in your brain are firing at this speed. And so when you're dreaming, the reason it feels so real is because actually those things are happening at the same speed. Not as high as 50 hertz, but it's in between that 15 and 30 hertz range. That's why they feel lifelike, right? That's why your dreams feel real, right? So it's sort of happening in that same frequency range.
Dude, it's just kind of a weird thing to share, but I wake up, this doesn't happen a lot, thankfully, but I wake up in dreams sometimes that are very sad, and I'm crying on my pillow in real life.
Yeah,
right. I mean, that's how deeply I'm experiencing them. Somebody dies or there's a loss or something like that, and I always just sort of assume that it's a way for my emotional self to process some kind of trauma or loss or grief or something. So I don't freak out, but it is weird because it's so damn real. Or when in a dream you'll be, say you're trapped or something and you're kicking your legs, and then you wake up and you're kicking your legs. And I've even been woken up. I wish I woke up laughing more. It's typically crying more, which says a lot about my past, I guess. But it is weird that dreams are so real. Yeah.
I mean, literally, it's if you think about it, your frontal cortex, right? That's sort of what keeps us grounded in reality. It's saying, okay, I need to come up with some type of sentence to say next on this podcast. I got to be thinking about something like that, right? Versus if that frontal cortex is turned off, it's like almost like you're on drugs, right? Like you're, microdosing or whatever it may be. You're a little trippy, right? It's that same state that that happens. And so your brain explores, right? It's exploring these other areas because that governor is shut off, right? And at the same time, it's remembering things from the day. It's playing them back in this hyperspeed to help you remember and process, right? And frankly, it's sort of like the sea, the ocean. There's so much that happens to our brain that we don't know, and we're still learning, when we sleep. Like we just found out this link between deep sleep and Alzheimer's, right? The world just discovered this 2 years ago.
Wow, really? That recent?
Yeah, I mean, some of this stuff is just super, super fascinating and new.
That's a trip.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's along with the REM sleep stage and meditation, there's also float tanks.
Yeah.
You ever go in float tanks?
I love them.
Yeah. So that's the same kind of thing where you're dreaming, but you're kind of awake. It's just, I think because, I don't know, I call it partying. It wasn't really a party in the last few years, but I've experimented a lot with different drugs in my life, and I just love being high. I'm just straight up, I'm not a person that ever really enjoyed feeling sober. I just like feeling totally out of my mind.
Sure.
But now I don't do that, so I find natural ways.
Well, meditation, right? You get a little bit of that high.
It's the best high ever.
Totally.
But there's no side effects. There's no consequences. I don't end up in handcuffs or anything weird like that.
Right. Yeah. Positive side effects.
Yeah, and I don't ruin my relationships, Although sometimes people get annoyed when you're like, oh, you got to go meditate now. Come on, we're supposed to leave, or it's time for dinner. When I was just at my dad's, and I think my dad meditates too, but they're not as hardcore as I am.
Sure. Yeah.
Every day he and his wife are like, you ready to do this and that? I'm like, what? Are you kidding? I have to meditate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, actually a lot of people now, what we're finding, they're using meditation actually as a form of certain types of meditation before they go to bed. Right, it's helping calm their brain.
Really?
Down. Yeah.
What's up with that?
I mean, if you look at actually Headspace or Calm, both those apps, they have specific, designed sort of bedtime, type meditations. And if you think about what happens, right, your brain is slowing down when you meditate. It's going from, call it 50, 60 hertz, right, down into almost, right, this more REM-like state, but not quite there, right? And so it's slowing down a bit. So it makes sense to me just from how the brain is processing, right? And so I think, I believe Headspace is actually working on this and actually proving this out scientifically, how meditation is actually linked to improved sleep. So,
awesome.
Yeah, I think
that's great. No wonder my sleep has been improved.
Yeah.
However, as a fellow do you meditate once or twice a day, or do you have a set routine?
Man, growing up, it was 3 times a day.
Wow, I'm so jealous. I'm like, God, I wish I had Sikh parents.
No, my parents were also, pretty strict relative to others. So, as a kid, you sort of hate it.
So that was part of your growing up discipline? They're like,
Oh,
cool,
yeah.
we meditate. This is part of our culture, and you're doing this.
I wake up at, the same time every morning, and I'd meditate for 40 minutes in the morning, right, as we read some of after our morning prayers. And then typically one in sort of the late afternoon, sort of same time you do.
Right.
And then we had a short one before bed as well.
Why I'm asking is in the tradition of Vedic meditation that I practice, it's mantra meditation, twice a day, 20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
This almost happened to me last night, but I'm learning. I just was grinding at work. Usually I'll meditate between 5 and 7. I prefer a little earlier, 5:30, 6, something like that. But I was just grinding yesterday, and then it got to be 7. I was like, it's getting a little late to meditate, 7:30, 8. Next thing it was 8. It was 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I had the time. I was done doing what I was doing, and I could have meditated. But I find if I meditate
too close to bed,
then I get the second wind and I'm super hyper, and then I'll stay up until 1 or 2 in the morning.
So I think that's particularly true of Vedic meditation. So I think the late afternoon, you're right, like 5 o'clock. Like actually, one of the meditation teachers I had. It's one of those, it's so funny, man. So I grew up with meditation, and like, then you're like, you go to college, you're like, oh, I don't want to meditate. I'm finally free from my parents. Like, they don't know what I'm doing all the time. So you stop meditating. And then I remember moving to New York City, and meditation was starting to get more and more popular. And so, actually Emily Fletcher, Ziva Meditation.
Oh yeah. Emily's been on the show.
Yeah. She's awesome. I remember her being on the show a while ago. But I took her class, and one of the things she also talks about with Vedic meditation is that it will, it does give you a little bit more energy. Right. So I think if you do Vedic too close to bed, it might be, a little bit of an issue. But there's other types of, shorter meditations, right, or even just gratitude type stuff before bed that I bet you helps. But
just ways to wind down without going into too deep of a state. Because sometimes the mantra-based meditation like Vedic and, the sister tradition of TM, I mean, you go so deep. I don't know if it's you get in a theta state or whatever it is, but you're very close to sleep. So
totally,
my nighttime when I come out of it quite groggy sometimes, almost like you took a nap and you're sort of like loopy.
And actually, that's another thing we see naps. Napping at the right time is just like meditation is probably pretty important. So if you nap too close to bed or in the evening, same thing, you won't feel as tired, right? And so then you have a harder time going to bed. I think as a company, like we haven't done a nap mode yet, but we will be doing that.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, but part of the reason is like we know there is actually a negative correlation. If you have a nap too late in the afternoon, it'll actually disrupt your sleep. But at the right time and the right amount, I think naps can be super helpful, especially if you're not getting enough sleep. If you're not getting 8 hours a night.
It's funny. I don't really nap because I meditate. It's like if I have a half an hour window and I have a choice to lie down and go to sleep, I'm like, oh, how boring. I'd rather meditate. It just feels so much better than sleep.
Yeah.
So what about let me see what I want to cover here. Okay, so we've talked about the different types of sleep, the different stages of sleep. What about people that are very physically active, your athletes and stuff like that? How does sleep affect performance in that capacity?
Yeah, I mean, look, so muscle repair, right? There's a saying actually that I really liked when I got really into, weightlifting at one point. It was that you don't get stronger in the gym, you get stronger out of the gym because you actually break down muscle in the gym, but it's that repair where, you have this super compensation and you actually recover. And so all of that actually, majority of that muscle repair all happens in your sleep. So it turns out that our testosterone, our growth hormone, right, they're both released actually predominantly when we sleep. And you'll see this. I mean, certain athletes, Tom Brady, LeBron James, I mean, they swear by sleeping as much as almost 10, 11 hours per night.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's something that if you think about it from just a repair perspective of repairing your muscles, right, and that's when they get stronger, right, that makes total sense. I think we tend to see, and some of our people who are more physically active in our users, right, that they end up getting more deep sleep. So people who do exercise tend to get more and more deep sleep. Now, the timing of the exercise can be important. If you exercise too close to bed, that might be a little bit of an issue, just like meditating or eating late. It can actually disrupt sleep. But yeah, and the other thing is it's actually really important for reaction time and injuries. And there's a link between those two. It's often, poor reaction times you make sort of the wrong decision at the wrong time when playing a sport that leads to injury. And so, there's been studies showing that as your reaction time actually decreases by 30 or 40% with every 2 hours less sleep you get than 8 hours.
Damn, that's substantial.
I think your risk for injuries,
That's crazy.
your risk for injury then as a pro athlete, it's something like goes up by 50% if you get less than 6 hours of sleep. So it has a huge impact on, how fast you're going to move, how quickly you're going to react, in a game, and then also, just your muscle repair. So, I find it, pretty interesting that Tom Brady, one of the, best and oldest quarterbacks, and he went to Michigan, so I'm a little bit of a fan. He's, stayed in the league that long by probably, one of the big things he credits is sleep.
That's inspiring.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge sports guy, but I do recognize greatness.
Yeah.
And when someone excels at whatever they're doing, and those are the people that you always want to look at, like, ooh, what are they doing?
Yeah.
That matters. And that's a substantial amount of sleep.
It's pretty crazy, right? Because we look at athletes and we're like, oh, they're awesome. They're always going out real hard and, they're even partying in the office, whatever it may be. But, think about how much discipline that takes, right? Like it's the hardest thing about sleep, I'm not going to lie. It's discipline. You got to do it every night. You got to be consistent. And if you're someone like LeBron, like you can do anything every night, right? Everyone wants to hang out with LeBron. Right. Everyone wants to even just be Facebook Live chatting with you, whatever it is, right? And you've got to have that discipline, I think, at an athlete at that level to, turn that off, right? And focus on your body and yourself.
Even to be a podcaster at this level, you have to have that discipline. Last night, dude, it's 11:30. I'm like, I should be in bed. Come on, Luke. Come on, because I'm starting yoga, Kundalini teacher training tomorrow, and you got to be there at like 8:30 in Venice every morning. So I really have to get my hours turned around.
Yeah.
And then I just, unfortunately, I was on Amazon. I was going to watch a 20-minute show, the Sacha Baron show, Who is America? Sacha Baron Cohen.
Yeah.
And I went in, and I know that's only 20 or 30 minutes in episodes. I'm like, I could squeeze in one and still nail it by midnight. I go in, and I was like, oh, shit, I already watched all 7 episodes.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, I'll just look on Netflix, I think it was on Netflix, for another short show.
Sure.
That's where I screwed myself. And I got on there and I saw Ozark, the new season. Watched them all. And I was like, oh, no. Thankfully, I only watched one episode. But it was torture not binging and going on with more of them. And then as a result, sure enough, I went to sleep at 1 a.m.
Yep.
And then woke up at 8 o'clock to get ready to go to yoga and walk the dog and stuff. And I really suffered. And when it was last night. My alarm goes off at 10 o'clock every night. Go to bed, Luke. Go to bed, Luke.
Sure.
And every night I'm like, ugh. And I just stop the alarm and stay up to midnight.
Yeah. Look, it's the hardest. It's one of the hardest things to do. I think being consistent and being, saying no to a lot of those things and, saying yes to that pill, saying yes to that. Hey, this is actually going to help me lose weight. This is going to help me function better the next day. It's going to make me it's going to make me a better podcast host, right? I'm going to be able to ask interesting questions and go into certain moments where I feel like, the conversation is leading. That happens, all that pill, you take that pill when you go to bed. A friend of mine, actually a coach, right? I have a coach, and, sort of just a life coach. That's something I've just recently started doing. It's been super helpful. And, as a startup company, you're
Is
always.
It from the Tony Robbins people?
He was not at Tony Robbins.
Oh, okay.
Funny enough, but he's been to Tony Robbins a bunch of times.
Because they have like a coaching. That's the last time I saw you, I think, was at the Tony Robbins thing in San Jose. And they email me every month or something like, hey, we'll work with you, get your own coach. I thought maybe they roped you into that.
No, he's just
in a positive sense.
Yeah, he's become a friend, and
cool.
He had a coach as well that helped him. And the way he explained it to me, that stuck with me. And I feel like I should be sleeping a lot every night. I work at a sleep company, but I live in California, or most of our team's in Finland. I'm up every day at 4:50 a.m. Right.
Wow.
Yeah, just because the time zone difference to do, I have all my calls at 5 a.m., starting 5 a.m. with the team.
Your CEO, bro, I'd make them change their hours. They'd be like, listen, you 10 guys, you get up at 4 a.m., you talk to me when it's like 8 at night or whatever it is.
Yeah, 6. But I think the way that it was stated to me is like, look, you're doing a disservice to yourself when you don't get enough sleep. You're not the best version of yourself tomorrow. Right, because of that lack of sleep. And in this instance, we have our regular sort of weekly check-in, and it's short. It's only 20 minutes, but And, I was like, hey, man, I just came back from a flight from Finland, totally exhausted. But, I met with someone and he wants me to come out to hang out with someone who's a player on the Golden State Warriors. Right. And I was like, I am dying. And I have to be up at 4:50 a.m. And he's like, oh, yeah, well, we're going to go out at 9 or 10. Like, come by. I'll introduce you to this. Can't say his name, And it was the hardest thing to do, to say, probably half my team is like, you're an idiot. You should have gotten, a ring to someone on the Golden State Warriors. But, it's hard to say no sometimes to that next thing, to the next episode, to hanging out with that next friend. And the way he put it to me was like, look, you can do that. You can go ahead and do it. And a lot of times we think that thing in the moment's going to make us feel so much better. But he's like, you're going to feel, and you're going to be less, you're going to be doing a disservice to yourself and to your team the next day. And so he's like, you'll be able to get in touch with that person. If it's meant to happen, it's going to happen. And he was right. Like, lo and behold, I told my friend, I was like, look, I can't make it that night. I just can't. I just have too much going on right now. And he was like, I understand. I'll put you in touch with, his agent. You guys will sort out and figure out a time to meet. And we did it. And we did it at a time when I was at my best, not at my worst. And it was way more effective because of that. So I think oftentimes it's saying no, that's the hard thing, but realizing that it's not only that pill, but you're doing a disservice to yourself, right, for the person you want to be tomorrow.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because I'm a total jerk when I don't get enough sleep.
Yeah.
Just yesterday, I went in the office, and again, not only last night but the night before was even worse, because I had just flown in from Colorado, and I got home at midnight or something. So my sleep was jacked. But yesterday in the office, I knew I was being a jerk. I just was very quiet so that I didn't say anything mean to my business partner. But halfway through the day, I was like, "Oh, hey, can we do this or that?" And she's like, we totally can if you'll just be nice at all. Yeah. She's like, can you just not be a jerk, basically? And I was like, God, I wasn't even saying anything. And she could tell that I was irritable just because my energy was irritable and I was just short-tempered.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't act upon any of, those impulses. But I go, God, I can't do this, man. I got to get sleep. So here's my question to you, Harpreet. So we've got this device called the Oura Ring. I'm proudly wearing mine right now as we speak. Would it be possible for you guys to program into here like some sort of shock treatment? You could set it every night at 10 or whatever the desired time is, where it literally shocks the shit out of you and the ring won't come off.
It won't come. It just
you have to
down.
Get into bed and be lying down.
Something tells me we might get a lawsuit if we do that.
Right? But, well, there's the one kid.
I think it's Pavlok.
Yeah, he has some kind of, some sort of negative reinforcement training or something. But you're right. It really is. It's the discipline that makes it difficult. And funny thing about that is, personally, and I think a lot of the listeners will probably agree based on getting to know some of them over the past 2 years, I'm a highly disciplined person when it comes to, I've eliminated so many negative habits out of my life. I have a very regimented, although very free life, but I have a lot of discipline. If you're like, hey, eat this bad food, smoke cigarettes, stay out late, drink alcohol, have sex with the wrong people, I'm very focused and very disciplined. But sleep has always eluded me. That's the one thing I haven't beat.
And I think it's because we take it for granted. I think it's because we don't realize all the benefits it has, right, for our bodies, for our minds, for others around us. And so I think, I think part of the reason, we exist as a company is that, if people start to learn about these things, they start to take it a little bit more, I don't want to say seriously, but meaningfully, right? Realizing that you do have this purpose for sleeping and that it actually matters quite a lot, frankly, to all the things you're trying to do the next day, to trying to be a better, in my case, boyfriend, trying to be a better CEO, trying to be, sort of more effective at work, right? Trying to even be better in the gym. There's still part of me that wants to go to gym and not completely suck ass every time. The ideas of, bench pressing whatever or doing this, CrossFit workout on this time are a little, I'm not as passionate about it, but I still don't want to get worse, right? And so I think it's realizing how important, and for me, just like you are, a scientific, logical person. When you start to understand all that importance of all these health benefits that happen during sleep, I think then you start to not take it for granted. And it's cool to see a little bit of this culture starting to change, where people starting to realize, I think corporates will change. I do think corporates will start to realize that, look at all the stuff that's going on with Elon Musk right now, right? He's saying snappy things. He's making sort of not the best decisions. And he's even said, and there's been stories out there of him like sleeping under desks and things like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's funny because I have seen him lately getting hassled a little. I don't know. I don't follow his scene enough, but on Twitter, I have noticed people are like bagging on him recently. Does that have something to do with it?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I think he's said some things he probably regretted publicly, but he's under a lot of stress. I think he's trying to get the Model 3 production going or whatever it may be, and he's behind. And so, but I think, the short-term investment banking side used to be, work really, really, really hard, stay up really, really late, get it done tomorrow. And now people are realizing, well, there's always tomorrow, right? And so we need to get it done more effectively, not over just the course of the next 2 weeks, but the next, 2 years. Right. And it's that marathon. And so being your best every day over 2 years versus getting, less and less effective every day. If you start to think about it that way, you as a boss or you as an employer, you're like, well, this doesn't make any sense. Like, I mean, I'm paying someone to stay up late so he forgets 50% more the next day. If you start thinking about it from that perspective, I think employers are starting to wake up for this as well. So.
Well, some of these tech companies they have a little nap pods.
Yeah, a little nap, Google.
Yeah, all that stuff. I'm like, duh.
Yeah.
Super smart.
Yep.
So what are some of the things, I want to get into some sleep hacks, but I want to know first off, what are some things, now, okay, we've definitely covered ad nauseum, like I always do, the benefits of sleep. So hopefully we've convinced the audience, like, hey, this is something you want to take seriously. It's the ultimate magic pill.
Sure.
What are some of the things, briefly, that jack our sleep up?
Yeah. So I think the first thing is an easy one is blue light. Right. So again, let's just think back. I like to think back how we evolved as humans. Okay. So turns out when it gets dark outside, your brain releases this hormone called melatonin. It's like, oh, it's dark outside. I should get ready to go to bed. I should start to get a little bit drowsier. My, core body temperature drops, right? And so it turns out, blue light, in particular, that particular wavelength of light, right, is actually what's responsible for releasing melatonin, right? So when you see electronic lights, lights that you have in the house, whatever it may be, TV, for example, your brain is getting the signal that, oh no, the blue light's still there, the sunlight's still there. I shouldn't release this melatonin, right? And so I think one of the biggest things we see is just, using blue light blocking glasses, I think you've had Matt on the show at Raw. I love him. I think, some of the work that he's doing at such a young age is super helpful.
You want to hear something crazy, dude?
Yeah.
I don't know if I think I've told him that. I don't know if I've told it on the show, but in podcasting, you have downloads for each episode, right? And the whole goal as a podcaster, what your success is really marked on is by the number of downloads you have. So right now I'm creeping up on 2 million downloads at my 2-year mark. No, it's great. Yeah. I'm grateful. Yeah. But you have some podcasters that get 2 million downloads a month.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So I'm in the top 5 percentile, I just found out.
Nice.
Because I get over 10,000 downloads per episode right now.
Yeah.
And then, 25 a week, about 100 a month, 100,000 a month. So I'm doing well. Not the point. I digressed. Point is, I always look at which episodes of mine get the top downloads because I'm always trying to quantify that so I can see what my most successful shows are and try and replicate that. What do people want to hear?
Yep.
And sometimes I have really big names in health and spirituality, and I always think those are going to be the biggest downloads. And sometimes they are. My Aubrey Marcus episode is huge, and he's got quite a following. Yeah. That was high downloads, and there's a few other ones like that that are obvious. Then there's some other really famous people I've had on the show, and those downloads aren't big at all.
Yeah, right.
So I don't know what the hell. But anyway, about 3 months ago, I'm looking at my downloads, and you can sort them by lowest number of downloads to highest. So I'm always looking, all right, what's my number one show? And what rises to the top is my episode called Extreme Biohacking Millennial Edition with Matt Maruka.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? I mean, it's a great conversation, but Matt at that time was a 17-year-old kid from Philly.
Man. Yeah.
Came up to one of my events in New York.
Yeah.
And said, hey, I really like your work. I know a lot about blue light and EMFs and stuff. I want to be a guest on your show. And I'm like, really, 17-year-old kid from Philly? Like, do you know who I am? No. But I'm like, I have a lot of people that are very known and have books and are experts and are older and wiser and all this. And I said, all right, what do you got? And he busted out some of his knowledge. It was sort of like a rap battle. I was like, all right. bust out a couple rhymes, give me like a couple of your talking points. And he did. And I was like, shit, this kid's smart. And so I said, what the hell? Yeah, I'll have you on. It'll help you with your, your blue blocking glasses thing on whatever. It's all good. He comes on. We have a great conversation for 2 hours. To this day, he's my number one downloaded show.
Yeah. I love Matt.
It's crazy.
I think he's awesome.
He's brilliant.
I also think it sort of shows from the millennial side how, someone at his age can say, no, dude, I don't need to go to college, right? Like this stuff that I'm learning now, like I'm learning more than I would ever learn in college, right?
Oh, yeah.
And he's already started a business. And so I think it's fantastic. But blue light, I think, is one of the easiest hacks, one of the things that people can do to immediately improve their sleep. And we've seen it in our users. People that actually are starting to use blue light blocking glasses will see their deep sleep improve. That's just what we've seen anecdotally. We're going to probably put a citizen science together on it to quantify.
Cool.
Yeah, and frankly, like I've even had people who I'm not going to name, but very high-profile health people not really believe in the whole blue light blocking thing to some degree. It's I look too nerdy, whatever it is when I put it on. Try it and then see the increase in their deep sleep on their Oura Ring. And that's like when you see that data and you're like, oh my God, that actually made a difference. Right? Because I sort of felt it, maybe not, but now I see the data, it made a difference, then they're hooked for life.
Yeah.
So that's one of the easiest hacks we see, I think.
And just to be clear so people understand, I think oftentimes when I tell people about blue light, they sort of give me this blank stare and they're like, I don't have any blue lights anywhere.
Yeah.
They think the color blue.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about the spectrum of warmth to coolness in light, right?
Yes,
so like we see in my living room here, I have these amber lights. Those are my nighttime lights. It's a very warm spectrum. And then the camera lights, these are called Kino Flow lights for video. Those are like the worst, gnarliest, fluorescent, very narrow spectrum of light that's cooler in temperature. So we just call that blue light.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep, exactly.
Because people ask me, they go, blue lights? I don't have any blue lights. I go, dude, your phone, that's blue light. They go, no, it's not blue, it's white.
Yep.
Right? So just to put that out there. And I'm a huge advocate of when the sun, like you said, I love how you said it, how we evolved. If you look at nature, when it gets dark outside, then it gets dark inside my house and it gets dark on my eyes.
Yeah, right.
So I make it dusk everywhere when it's dusk outside. It's really... It's not that hard. People bitch about like what an interference it's going to be. I just go, no, it's just you just habituate yourself. When you see the sun going down, you're like, oh, cool. Now I'm going to go sun gaze, hopefully. Watch that sunset a little bit. And then I know that I'm going to have to trick my biology into thinking that it's nighttime, though I still have lights that are telling my brain that it's not.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so the blue light thing.
Blue light's one. Another one I think actually that is probably taken for granted is food. And it's not just I'm not going to go really after what you eat yet, because I feel like you obviously are pretty good about that with your audience, but actually when. So when you eat, if you eat, within 4 hours of bedtime versus 2 hours of bedtime, we do see a huge difference sort of on the quality of sleep you're getting, and actually also your heart rate variability, something that we track all throughout the night as well. And so, which is a key indicator for stress. And so we have seen some research, I think, recently get published in that there's two groups of cohorts. I forget which university did this, but they did intermittent fasting. And they had one group actually end their intermittent fasting window at 5 p.m. and another group that would end at 9 p.m. And if you looked at sort of all the lipid markers, all the, glucose, blood, all the different things that they took, and even just body composition and weight gain, what they found is the group that actually, they both were doing intermittent fasting, they both saw benefits, but the group that finished at 5 p.m. was something like astounding, like 30% better across the board. So yeah, it turns out actually, that the timing of food matters a ton. And Sachin Panda at the Salk Institute, I think he's done some good work on this, even just showing that when it becomes dark at night, actually when melatonin is released in your body, right, that if you actually have the same, we'll pick a sugary food, your glucose response is actually as much as 50% higher if you eat it late at night for the same food for the same person than if you ate it earlier in the day. Yeah.
Oh, that's not fair.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah,
that totally puts the kibosh on my ice cream.
No, and
the late night ice cream.
We're gonna do this. We're gonna do a citizen science study. I kid you not. We're doing something called Oura Labs. Actually, by the time this podcast airs, it'll be out. Where we're taking groups of people, right, just friends, whoever, just people that have Oura Rings, and we're gonna be like, eat a pint of ice cream, these 30 people, and let's do it sort of an hour before bedtime, right? And you can then see how devastating it is on your sleep versus your average sort of sleep when you don't do that. So yeah, late night foods, especially desserts, are terrible. The other big one is alcohol. I know people don't want to hear it. I didn't like hearing it either. But when you see that data and see how much worse your sleep is and your resting heart rate and your heart rate variability, it does make a huge difference. So what we just actually, I think, I'm not going to tell people not to drink. What I'll tell you to do is actually just drink earlier. So have that drink at 4 or 5 o'clock like they do in Europe. Don't have that after glass, sort of cocktail, right, or nightcap. That totally wrecks your sleep. So I think the timing of alcohol is huge, and obviously the amount as well.
Yeah, I think people have the misconception that if you're sort of buzzed or drunk, because you have that sensation again, you get tricked into thinking that you're sleeping deeper or better than you are. And when you're sort of drunk and you kind of quote unquote pass out, you're like, oh man, I just passed out. I slept like a rock. No, you didn't.
Yep.
Not if you had alcohol. Yeah, it doesn't have something to do with the GABA or something?
It does. I actually don't know the particular metabolic pathways for alcohol and sleep, but it's just clear as hell on the data.
I think it has something to do with the GABA, because when you drink alcohol, you produce the neurotransmitter of GABA, and that's that feeling of being drunk. Because I take GABA sometimes, or Phenibut, another version of GABA I took today, and it makes me like a little bit woozy.
Sure.
And it's that feeling, it's that drunk feeling, but the bad part of the drunkenness.
Yeah, I mean, what we actually hear from our users is they start figuring out which type of alcohol actually suits them better. So they'll see different responses to a tequila, let's say, with sleep than, let's say, actually a light beer or a glass of wine. So,
interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty cool actually to be able to see that in your sleep and your heart rate variability today.
I imagine tequila is probably not good.
Oh my God.
Tequila makes people so ornery. That's like the one alcohol everyone's like, oh, don't give me tequila.
It's the one upper of alcohols, right? So plant-based, which is interesting. But yeah, I think we've seen, resting heart rates like go up as much as 20, 30 beats per minute over the course of the night with certain types of alcohol and obviously amounts.
Right. And what about CBD and or THC?
Yep. So interesting. I think, there's definitely benefits for some people with certain types of, either CBD and THC. I do think timing and amount matters. I think we've seen from, again, self-reported users, and we're going to start quantifying this with more of a community and Oura Labs type feel, sort of showing which things are working for which people. But I think the certain amount of CBD we're definitely seeing helps people get some sleep. I do think THC and excess amounts, like probably what people take regularly, can actually disturb sleep. So again, you might feel good, you might fall asleep quickly, but I think particularly actually REM sleep ends up sort of both deep and REM end up being impacted. So I do think there's some more work being done out there. It's a little hard to do medical studies with marijuana still or cannabis, the FDAs and making that easy on the industry, but I think you're going to see more of it come out there. There is some stuff actually happening with microdosing. So I think LSD and psilocybin. There's actually some studies showing that particularly people with sort of PTSD are seeing a huge impact of benefit by microdosing those what are now called drugs. Hopefully that'll change in the future and seeing some benefit of sleep. So
wow, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we're super interested in doing some of that research as well.
That's going to be fun to see how the cannabis thing plays into sleep and how to use that effectively, and also the microdosing, the timing of that, like psilocybin. That's going to be fascinating as that starts to become more widely explored.
Yeah, as a company, it's a little tough. Like, I think there's, it's like, how far do we push the line without then, getting in a lawsuit? But I will say is like, you can experiment as a user using an Oura Ring and see what sort of works for you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I just was in Colorado where weed's legal. Yeah. And I went in my dad's supplement.
It's legal in California too.
Is it now? Okay. I don't smoke, so I'm totally out of the loop. But I was going through my dad's supplement cabinet because my dad's a big biohacker like me, and I'm always rating his supplements when I'm out there. And I found this whole weed section, and my dad's like not a cannabis user, but he has a lot of insomnia issues. And so I was looking through his thing, and he has all these little very specifically calibrated doses of THC and these little pills and stuff. And I was like, oh, sick. So I started pounding those at night, and I couldn't tell any difference in my sleep. I took the THC, not enough to get like high, but 10 milligrams or whatever, right? Yeah. And some of them were with CBD, some with not. And I was like, oh, I want to see if this works. And I tracked my sleep with my Oura Ring. And some nights I would take it and my sleep sucked really bad.
Yep.
And some nights I'd take it and my sleep was awesome.
Yeah.
And it had no apparent effect for me.
I mean, look, I think what's interesting is different things work for different people.
Right.
So, if everything worked for one person, it was just one thing you had to do, we wouldn't have any health issues, right? So I do believe in N of one, everyone reacts differently. And so you need something like an Oura Ring and like other devices out there, right? To, even continuous glucose monitors to see which foods are really hurting you, not hurting you. But yeah, we've definitely seen certain people really see improvements with CBD, and some people it's not as effective. I mean, some people actually we found a float tank or a good massage even sometimes can really help with sleep.
Right.
Even, the right amount of exercise at the right time can help with sleep. So I think, as far as sleep hacks go, sure, try CBD, see if it works for you. If it's, as I guess I should say publicly, as it's, if it's legal in the state that you're in,
right.
And see what works. But, also try some of these other things. One of the other big ones we've seen is just stretching before bed, like light stuff, especially for a lot of us that sit at desks, right? Our breathing patterns are actually affected. We hold in a lot of stress. We're not sort of sitting anatomically the way we are meant to be as humans again. That sort of stretching and even foam rolling can definitely help improve the quality of your sleep and make you relax, and you'll have a lower resting heart rate throughout the night. But yeah, I think if I had to rank them, blue light blocking glasses, timing of food, getting some type of exercise will normally help promote the quality and onset and deep sleep. I do think it's doing things that are relaxing before bed, something like stretching, right? A float tank in the late afternoon or evening can be helpful too.
What about fornication?
We can see some of that data in our users, but, I think for sure there is a link between fornication and testosterone release, and so more deep sleep at night. So I think that is there's been medical studies on that.
It's definitely going to be different for men and women. In my life experience, as being in a male body this time around, post fornication, I don't know where I came up with that word.
Yeah.
I think I'm trying to swear a little less on the show.
Sure.
I'm really working on that just for personal reasons. So I'm not going to use the F word before sleep. But, obviously as a male, typically what's going to happen is you're going to be more interested in sleep afterward. But most women, in my experience, are super energized afterward and don't want to go to sleep. So you have this sort of cosmic joke that our creator has played on the two inverse sexes.
Well, maybe that's because the women you've been with after feel really good and they're excited.
Well,
so,
let's hope so.
Let's hope so. Right?
A couple of them.
Yeah.
But I wonder what I'm joking, but I'm serious though. I wonder what the difference is between anatomically between the male and the female bodies when they orgasm or they climax.
I think we got to get a Aura citizen science study,
right?
And get some enrollees.
I could just see the Reddit thread or whatever, like looking at these important issues.
Everything I've seen from literature actually, I think, indicates that it helps. I know especially in males with deep sleep because of testosterone release, but also my understanding is females too. So.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good. Everyone, I think, could have more sex. You know?
Oh, coffee. Forgot to mention that.
Oh, Jesus. Right, dude.
I know. Yeah.
I played myself the other night. I had on vacation there. I had dinner, and my stepmom was like, "Want a coffee?" And I looked at my watch. I was like, "It's 6 o'clock. I'll be fine." But it wasn't my type of coffee. She had some nuclear Franken coffee GMO or something.
Folgers.
Something like that. I got
fruit.
so jacked up, and I slept horribly that night. The next day, I was going, what the hell, man?
Yeah.
I took the THC. I did the things. And it took me a minute. When I woke up, I was like, God damn it was that coffee. I had it too late.
Totally.
So how does caffeine affect sleep?
I mean, look, caffeine's going to get you in a heightened state, right? Your blood, your heart rate's going to be faster, right? It's harder to relax. And so we know, I'm not a biochemistry guy. I'm more signal processing, like all the little sensors in here. That's sort of my jam. But from everything we see, that for sure coffee affects sleep. What we're finding from a lot of our users is actually even the time in the morning. So if you have a coffee actually at 6 a.m., right, versus a coffee even at 11 a.m., there can be a huge difference in your sleep quality. And some people are, right, they're more receptive to caffeine, right? The half-life might be actually longer for them. But for sure, the timing of caffeine has a huge impact. And I think a lot of people are in this you get in this negative spiral again. You get tired in the afternoon, you have that late coffee, right? Then you have a harder time sleeping, you have poor quality sleep, and then you feel more tired the next day. And so I think it's one of these things, unfortunately, because Starbucks or whatever it is, has made a huge business on multi-billion-dollar business, on getting people more caffeine till super late at night. But yeah, we totally see that at wreck sleep.
Okay, good to know. Another self-discipline, did not have coffee too late in the afternoon.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to affect me having, any time in the morning, I'm good. But again, doing that at dinner is like...
Yeah, everyone's different, right?
Yeah, and even, I had what was it, I guess, genetic testing done a while ago to see how I metabolize. It just, one of the markers was how you metabolize caffeine.
Yeah.
Turns out me personally, I metabolize it quickly.
Yeah.
Which is good because then it's got a
shorter
half-life in your body, but still got played the other night. So let's talk a little bit about a lot about the tracking then, and I think we'll probably close with this section because now we've covered a lot, like why sleep's important, some of the things that help it, some of the things that hurt it. Yeah. So we're motivated, I think, at this point to really pay attention to this in this episode. But what I think has been most impactful for me, and I'm not just saying this to kiss your ass because you're my guest and you're at a sleep tracking company, but honestly, getting the ability to track my sleep, and I'll tell you how I did it first and how I do it now, has improved my sleep more than anything because I gamified it. And now I have this personal challenge to crush my sleep records.
Yeah.
And I text them to, like the other night in Colorado, I slept 10 hours. I got a 94, I think, on the Oura app score. And I was like, yes, mother effers. And I texted it to my brother. I was like, burn, dude, look at that. And I was all proud of myself. He's like, whoa, bro, how'd you do that? And we're all, cheering each other on. Then a couple nights later, I got a freaking 70 or something. And I was like, womp, womp.
Yeah.
5 hours sleep, just horrendous. I think it was the coffee night. But what I think the real value is being able to encourage yourself and to have that score. And then also, within the Oura app, which is cool, you can take notes. Oh, this night I had a coffee at 5. This night I had sex. This night I did weed.
Yep.
This night I ate ice cream at 12 a.m. and climbed right in bed. This day I did everything right. And
exactly.
It's like you can see what works for you because subjectively for each of us, the rules of the game when it comes to sleep are a little bit different. So
and frankly, I think it's hard to remember, right? You can almost can't remember. Like if you don't have something that's tracking, it's like, oh, how did you sleep 3 nights ago or 4 nights ago? Shit, I don't remember. I don't remember what happened 2 hours ago anymore, right? So it's like trying to, I think, even just put that together without having some data is really, really hard.
The first thing I got was this app called Sleep Cycle, and it's got some sort of little sensor microphone. Uses your phone microphone. You put it on
under your pillow.
Yeah, you put it next to your bed on airplane, of course. I'm not that crazy, but that was good. And then it had some correlation. It's not very accurate, but it has some correlation. I mean, definitely. It'll be able to tell kind of when I fell asleep, when I woke up, and relatively if it was a good night's sleep or not. But even that was a good start. But then when I got the Oura Ring, I was like, oh, damn, this is really accurate. And I can go in and see my heart rate. I can see, I get a score, a more realistic score, but I can see my REM sleep, my light sleep, my deep sleep, all of that, when exactly it happened.
Yeah. How much?
I can export that data. I mean, if you were like a super geek, you could really gamify your
We have
sleep.
a cloud platform, so anyone can actually log in and see all of it on a dashboard right on the web. So you can, we have people that are sharing it that way with friends or taking screenshots. You have the ability actually, even as developers, software developers, we have an open API. So we're working with some other companies that just want to ingest some of that data as well.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah. So we've made it totally open. I think, look, what we have found is just when you start to show people this data, they start to put it together themselves. Right, they start to realize, oh, what did I do that day that actually hurt my score? What did I do this day that actually improved my score? And so just having access to that data is super helpful. Look, we chose a ring. There's a lot of different things you can do. So, you could obviously use just your phone, right? Put it on the bedside table. You can even put stuff under the mattress. Ton of EMF, but have some bunch of accuracy issues there, right? You can wear a Fitbit as well. What we chose and why we chose the ring was because we saw this cross section of sort of comfort and convenience and accuracy. And so when we first started, we're a very scientific company. We are a Finnish, company. And so we pride ourselves on our engineering. And so we looked at, okay, can we do this with something on the bedside table? No, we had a bunch of accuracy issues there when comparing it to sort of polysomnography with all the wires hooked up to your brain. Could we do this with something that actually is on your wrist? We actually found a ton of issues there because of the pulse signal, which I can get into. And so what we found actually with the finger is that because that pulse signal is so strong, it's basically, if you look, I know most people won't watch this video, they'll probably listen to it on the podcast, but look at your wrist. Right, and if you look at your wrist, actually, we know as a kid, where do we measure our pulse? On the inside of the wrist, right? And that turns out that's where your arteries are, right? And so your veins are on your other side of your wrist, and so there's way more blood flow in those arteries than veins. That's why, if you cut yourself on the inside of the wrist, you might bleed to death pretty quickly. Those same arteries that have way more blood go into, your palm and your fingers, and then your skin is super thin here. It's almost transparent, right? You can see that redness, right? And so it turns out those arteries come super close to the surface of the skin, so that pulse signal is really rich. So what that allows us to do at Oura is sample that heart rate really, really sort of super frequently. So we actually measure your heart rate at 250 hertz. So 250 times a second, we're shining an infrared light, which infrared light, we've chose for a reason because we do know there's health benefits associated with it. Also because you can't see it, so it doesn't bother you at night. And so we're able to shine that at 250 hertz. Most other wearables, a Fitbit, an Apple Watch, wrist-based devices are only sampling at 10 to 20 hertz. So, we're sampling, 20 times to 10 times more than those other devices. That gives us a very accurate sort of pulse waveform, which we then are able to deduct, heart rate variability, respiration, but also other characteristics, which I can't say on the show, what we use for staging sleep. So turns out it's a much more accurate place to measure data, and then it's more convenient. And frankly, it actually looks better. So think about watches. You're a really stylish guy. You have way more style than me. A lot of people into fashion have nice watches, right? There's 500 million plus watches sold each year. But how many people wear those watches to bed? Not that many, right? Basically zero, right? And the reason is if you wear a watch to bed, it's annoying. Your wrist hurts a little bit the next day, right? It's a little cumbersome. It gets in the way, especially if you're having sex, right, or fornicating. You might hit your partner. It's not the most comfortable.
I'm going to bring that word back.
Fornication.
Like you already picked it up.
So, wrist actually ends up being just uncomfortable, and they need bigger lights and brighter lights to measure that heart rate. So I think, a lot of the Fitbits, the green light is pretty bothersome at night, and our heart rate data is actually more accurate, which helps us with sleep. The other thing we also see is actually temperature. So we know when you go to bed, actually your core tries to cool, right? So, and if you look at sort of your body, think about when you get cold or hot outside or at night, it's your extremities, right? Your fingers, your toes, right? That sort of get cold and hot. And so that also helps us. We see that temperature data way more accurately than you do on the wrist. And actually some of that's also useful for fertility. So some women are using their Oura Rings to sort of track when they're ovulating, and we put out a pretty good...
What?
Yeah. Because the temperature data is really, really accurate. And
no way.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, we'll share we did a really good blog post about it, sort of what happens to your temperature change as a woman when estrogen and progesterone is released. So
trip out.
Yeah. So
you might have just explained hot flashes too when women go through menopause, right? Wow. Okay. So there's on the inside of here, when I take off my ring, there's little sensors in here that are actually shining infrared light onto my finger then. Yeah.
So we have two LEDs, and those are shining at 250 hertz. Mm-hmm. And then we have a detector in the middle. So that's actually grabbing the reflection of the LED. We also have 3 temperature sensors in there. So we have, we're measuring your temperature on your finger, and then we also have an accelerometer. So we do capture steps and movement as well, and actually a gyroscope. We sort of took everything that's on a regular wrist-based wearable and put it on the finger, and frankly made it look good. It's super lightweight. It's titanium. We chose that for a reason, so you basically can't feel it when you sleep. Most people then don't have to ditch their watches. I think, there's one person female, she actually remarked this to me. She's like, I used to call wearables unwearable. because she's like, I would never want to go out at night. I'd never want to be out with my friends, like going to a nice dinner and have my Fitbit on. And so she's like, this is great. I just look at no one even knows that I actually have something on. We won a Red Dot. We won a design award, right? The Red Dot Design Award. So that's a pretty prestigious award given for sort of, design and technology.
Something that troubles, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that.
Something that troubles me about wearables is the Bluetooth signal that's being constantly emitted by them. I remember when Apple Watches came out, I was like, that's great. But, dude, now you not only have a cell phone signal, like a cellular, what do they call that? Like a data signal, right? And then you also have Bluetooth and Wi-Fi literally on your wrist, dude, where all of those arteries are.
Yeah.
I mean, that does not sound like a great idea. I would never wear one of those.
Especially when you're sleeping, it's close to your head.
Oh, my God. Right? I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even with my iPhone these days, just the more I learn about EMFs and stuff, I'm not paranoid. Obviously, I use my phone, but if it's on my body, 90% of the time it's on airplane.
Yeah. So, yeah, thanks for bringing that up. We are one of the only wearables that has an airplane mode. So you can actually turn off the Bluetooth. And, to turn it back out, some people ask, how do you turn it back out of it? You just pop it in the charger, and then it'll actually pop out of airplane mode. And you can sync data. You can actually store data without connecting to your phone on here for it's actually longer, but we're telling people publicly 4 weeks without syncing your data to your phone. And so all of it's actually stored on this ring.
Dude, it's crazy. And also the battery on the... I don't know how you guys made this damn thing so small, like how it does all that. Sometimes I'm thinking, is this shit even real? Because it's so light. It feels like a Cracker Jack fake ring. I mean, honestly, it looks cool, but it has no weight.
Yeah.
And then when you charge it, I don't know, I haven't counted the amount of days, but I'll forget to charge mine. I feel like for a week at least.
It's a week. Yeah.
Okay, so, and then I'll get a little notification on the app like, hey, you're down to 10%.
Sure.
Make sure you charge it before you go to bed. But then it charges hella fast too.
Yeah, I think it's about an hour. I mean, I think depending on how decharged you let it go.
Yeah.
But most people, I think, charge it at sort of that 10 to 15%. So it ends up being a little bit over an hour.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I'll be getting ready for bed and oh man, my Oura Ring's low. I'll put on the charger and I think, I'll have to pick it up tomorrow. But then I check it and it's already charged.
Yeah.
Just in a couple hours before I go to sleep.
Yeah.
And then I don't. I just took it on that trip to Colorado and
no charger.
Yeah, I didn't even bring the charger. And I was there for a week. And on the last day, it got down to like 3%, and it still tracked.
Okay.
But it wouldn't give me all the data on the app.
So
I was like down to that last little hair of a battery life. And I was like, God damn, that's pretty good. I mean, you could take a trip and not even bring your little charger and you're stoked.
Totally. Yeah, no, we have
cool.
Another friend of mine, he just was like, man, my parents, they love them, and they went to Europe, but they didn't bring their chargers, and they thought they were going to make it the whole trip, and it was like one night short. So he was like, but it's still pretty cool not to even, you don't really have to think about it. Again, we designed it that way. We wanted to blend in with your life. We didn't want it to be a lot of hassle. We didn't want it to get in the way when you sleep. We put that airplane mode because we do have concerns about EMF as well. Certain types of people, that we have seen, actually some with Lyme disease tend to have more, EMF tends to look like it's more sensitive, so it disrupts their sleep more. So, but yeah, I mean, we try to make it as seamless, as fashionable, blend in with your life. We don't want, people have asked, why don't you put lights on it or something like that? We have enough distractions, right, in our life, right? People are touching their phones. I think it's something like 150 times a day on average, right? So we're already distracted enough, right? We don't need something else to distract, but we want to make something that could actually help you and look good too, right?
What's up with the other element of tracking, where it tracks your HRV or heart rate variability? And before I forget, I'm just going to open up my Oura app right now because we could do this afterward off air, but I have to pick up my dog soon.
Yeah.
So we're short on time. But when I look at my, let's see. So when I look at my trends here, let me go into trends, and where's my my HRV, my readiness. It looks like, generally speaking, and I wear this ring 24/7. Looks like I'm like in the 50s on average.
Yeah.
Like on a good day, I'll get up into 60 ms.
Sure.
My worst days and times are over 40 still. So
wow.
I'm averaging upper 50s, it looks like.
Yeah. So one thing we know.
And what is MS when I'm looking at it?
Milliseconds.
Milliseconds.
Yeah. So that's literally the variability between your heartbeats.
Okay. Tell us all about that.
Yeah. So heart rate variability, I think, has started to become a more and more looked at metric. I think the old way people used to do heart rate variability tests, right, was you put on a chest strap first thing in the morning, you roll out of bed,
That's stupid. That's why I never did it.
Yeah,
I was like, really?
It's a lot of work.
I mean, it's good data to have, but I'm like, I'm not going to put on a chest strap, this whole thing, plug my phone into it. No.
Yeah, so it turns out to be actually a leading indicator of chronic stress from everything we've seen. So, and it does get worse as you age. So I think, people who are sub 20 years old, right, we'll see that have heart rate variability scores in the 100 milliseconds. And it's...
those bastards.
Yeah. But, I mean, that might be why they feel so relaxed, too, right? And you feel so good and, you sleep like a baby. But, yeah, so it turns out that, heart rate variability does decrease as you age, but it ends up being a leading indicator for stress, chronic stress. We do tend to see people that have certain types of disease, Lyme disease, lupus, even diabetes actually have lower heart rate variability on average in their age cohort. But yeah, it's actually really, really interesting. I'll find myself like, when I used to be on Wall Street and if, let's say I was, had a bad day and had something bad happen to one of my portfolio companies and the stock would be down a ton, man, my heart rate variability would get zapped because I knew, I'm super stressed about it. On the medical side, we've seen, links to heart rate variability and depression. We've seen there's a lot of actually research been done on addiction and heart rate variability, also on sort of correlating heart rate variability to heart attack and strokes. So it's a metric that's starting to be looked at more and more as a really good indicator for overall stress, and that we know it has links to chronic disease as well.
So the goal is to get a higher
number is better. Yeah. I think
what I'm really fishing for here, Harpreet, is for you to go, damn, bro, you're getting up in the 60s,
I will
you're crushing it. No, I mean, honestly,
someone who's
I'm 40. I'm about to turn 48.
Yeah, that's really good.
It is?
Yeah. So we'll release some more of those stats. We haven't yet. We don't, I think it's one of the philosophies of the companies. We don't want to make people feel bad if they have a certain score. Like everyone starts out, it's just like yoga. Dude, I'm the most inflexible person in the world right now, right? If you go to a yoga class, you always feel a little embarrassed, right? So if you have poor heart rate variability or poor sleep, we try not to actually, ding you that much. We want to be more motivational, and it's sort of where you are and where you can improve to. I mean, we'll see this with some pro athletes. I mean, Tour de France cyclists, we had a bunch of Tour de France cyclists who are using the Oura Ring now, some of the teams there. Man, those guys have heart rate variability in the hundreds, right?
What?
Yeah.
So athletes will have a better HRV?
Yeah. That's what we're saying. Not all of them, some of them.
Anything that involves like working out a lot, I'm always like, God, I reluctantly, of course, work out quite a bit, but like, God, when things are improved by doing hardcore sports,
sure,
I'm always like, man, isn't there an easier way?
And look, there is. I think things.
What about can I meditate my way there?
Yeah.
That helps.
So actually, there's some studies showing this and we're going to do something. We haven't released this yet, but we're going to release a meditation mode in the app. And what we know about meditation is that actually, so heart rate variability also is this indicator of your stress, right? And so your, sort of your sympathetic nervous system, right? So your fight or flight. And so what we know is sort of that higher that number, right, the more variability it is, right, the more parasympathetic you are, so you're more relaxed, right, and the lower that number is, the more stressed you are, the more sympathetic you are, so you're sort of in between the two in that fight or flight. And so what we do know is that certain things like meditation actually do help improve HRV, and in fact, you can actually see that. There's been research showing that during meditation sessions, people's resting heart rate will decrease and their heart rate variability will increase. And so that is a mode that we will introduce in the app. So you'll be able to record a meditation session.
Oh, awesome.
You'll be able to see the improvement actually in your heart rate variability over that session. And so, just like you said before, when you started seeing data, that sort of inspired you to do things that are better and better. And so that's part of our idea is that actually if you can start to see some of this data more granularly, right, and see your heart rate variability change during that meditation session, you're going to feel a little bit better about it and do it more frequently.
Oh, that's huge. You can also apply it to, for those of us biohackers that have very meaningful technologies like the AMP coil and the NanoV and the vital reaction hydrogen inhaler, like the big dogs that I use that are thousands of dollars on really powerful kind of health interventions in some cases. It's really cool to see and continue to create data about what's happening to you when you use those.
Totally, exactly.
Because it's again, it's like when you have the data, it's motivating,
It's
and then you'll
super
be like,
motivating.
oh, cool, this thing was worth the money, or it's worth my time doing, because you're not placeboing yourself.
Yeah.
Thinking, I think it made me feel better or have more energy.
And look, I mean, for me, it was super impactful for drinking. You know, when I'd go out with friends, you know, and you're at dinner, like it's sort of hard sometimes to say no to that drink. You're like, well, everyone else is doing it. I'll have a drink or two. I'll feel good. I started to see how bad some of my data was. I was like, man, this is killing me. And it's not like I was having 7, 8 drinks. I was having 1 or 2. And so I think just seeing that data totally, you know, made me realize, wow, this is actually really hurting me. And I stopped doing that. So.
What do your analytics look like before we close? Because you're flying to Finland.
Flying to Finland, yeah.
It's funny. I'm like, hey, I want to have you on the podcast. You're like, oh, I live in San Francisco. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, well, when are you coming in LA next? And you just go, oh, I'll just jump on a plane and come down for the recording and just go home. Yeah. Like, oh my God, I would never do that. I would get so thrashed from going in the airports and the Ubers and all that stuff. So you're traveling around a lot. What do your scores look like?
Actually, I think I had pretty good scores the last few nights. My heart rate variability last night was probably in the mid 60s. The prior 2 nights, it was actually in the 90s.
What?
So yeah, I mean, look, I do obsess about this stuff.
Yeah.
I tend to actually, for me, food ends up being a huge like impact. Like if I eat, the other night I ate dinner at 5 o'clock. Dude, my heart rate variability was like 95 or 96, right? My resting heart rate was in the 40s, and my deep sleep was like an hour and a half, if not more. So for me, I've found that I have a super strong correlation to when I eat food. And not everyone will be that way, but we found that to be a general trend. Look, I have paid a lot of attention to travel hacks. So when I travel, I fast. I don't eat on planes, like when going on sort of into a different time zone. Or, you know, honestly, like for almost like 18 to 24 hours. I also exercise in the morning when I go to a new place. So like, you know, when I go to Finland, I try to get some exercise that next morning, right? That helps actually reset your circadian rhythm as well. I do use the human charger. I find that helps a ton for traveling as well. And, you know, I think it's just little things like that that I've learned over time, you know, to help. So yeah, it's, you know, it's tough, right? Like honestly, I always have work to do. I always feel like I can be doing some more work tonight for the company, right? But I also know that at the same time, my alarm's going to hit 4:50 a.m. tomorrow, so I try to get in bed by 9:30. Right? Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, that's how I'll get 8
start
hours.
texting me and be like, "Yo, it's 9:30. Are you in bed?" Yeah, Luke.
I know.
What do your sleep scores look like? I'm usually in the upper 80s to low 90s.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say I'm probably a little bit behind you. I'm probably not getting enough most nights. I'm probably you know, I'd say the mid 80s to sort of, you know, low 90s every once in a while. When I do travel, there will be a night or two where I'll get in the 50s. It's gonna happen.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm trying to think if I've had.
Have you ever had?
Let me look back and see what my really horrible one was that I got in Colorado. That was just a
honestly
travesty.
Like, it's one of the most things that I think has been helpful for me. You know, and I used to travel a lot for, you know, work before Oura. I found that actually, man, travel really does hit you. And then I can see it in my data, and then I'll know, like, guys, I really got to pull back a day or two. I can't hang out with you that night, or I can't stay up late working because I really need to recharge. And so that's one way it's really helped let me know sort of my boundaries.
Sorry, I wasn't even listening.
You're like, let me find the lowest number.
I'm trying to look at some of my data here. Okay, so there was one crap night I had on vacation. Okay, here it is. So I got my total efficiency was a 79. My sleep score,
tossing and turning a lot.
My sleep score was a 69.
Okay.
My total bedtime 10 hours and 20 minutes.
Wow, so you were turning a lot.
My total sleep time 8 hours 9 minutes.
So you're awake a lot during the middle of the night.
Yeah, I had 4 wake ups. My efficiency was only 79%. My deep sleep was only 10 minutes.
Wow.
2% of my sleep was deep sleep. I was jacked up. Latency, an hour and 3 minutes. So
wow, it took you a while.
It took me an hour to fall asleep, and then my timing sucked because I went to bed
super late. Yeah.
And that was just, oh my God, those nights just below. But then, you know, there was the one, where's my one good one? Here's a 68. Oh yeah, here we go. I love it when the nights when I just absolutely slay. And I love to brag about them. Just for this one, the efficiency. Yeah, here we go. Okay, total bedtime 9 hours 41 minutes. Total sleep time 9 hours 22 minutes.
Wow.
This is one of my proudest moments.
Yeah.
I posted this on my Insta
okay.
stories. Yeah. Sleep efficiency 97.
Holy cow.
Overall sleep 92. Efficiency, 0 wake ups.
Wow.
REM sleep 3 hours 4 minutes. Deep sleep 1 hour 21 minutes. Now check it out. I would have gotten an even higher score, but I got that little pay attention.
Oh yeah.
Where it's your timing. I hate that thing. It's red. Pay attention. And I didn't go to sleep until 11:57 p.m.
Okay. All right.
But think that night, if I would have went to bed at 10
right.
and got that kind of quality and duration of sleep, I would have got 100%.
Or even at that point, maybe just 11. Yeah.
It's one of my top scores of all time.
I'm trying to think.
So proud of that one.
I've seen 99 sleep scores. I don't know if I've seen 100. I think we have had one user or a few users hit 100, but
so there is 100.
Yeah,
I just 100.
I personally don't know someone that is. I definitely have people who've texted me their sleep data when they've gotten 99s and stuff like that.
Oh man, that's amazing.
The activity score, we've had people hit hundreds for sure on the activity score.
And what is the activity score?
Yeah, I mean the activity score. I mean, again, just like any other, we put the motion sensors in there to track steps. Get people moving every hour.
Oh, okay, okay.
So
right.
Each of the scores, we have a pretty detailed explanation for how we calculate each one, and it's on the blog. And you can actually click any of the bars. So if you click I know we got to make that a little bit easier so people know. So you can click and get a description like, why does sleep timing, what do I need to do to actually get that score, that sub score, that bar up into the green instead of the red, or the blue instead of the red in our case. But
I don't, it's funny. I don't look at the activity one that often.
Yeah.
Because it's not something that I gamify. I'm as active as I possibly can every day. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think some people are definitely more, people that are more into fitness and don't just do it as a basic requirement like I do generally.
Yeah.
I think those people would be much more interested in that aspect of it. Yeah. I'm always like, oh, what? I did what today? Oh, great.
Yeah.
Because some days I crush the activities and go, what? Oh, yeah, I did. I went to the gym and I walked the dog a million times and stuff like that.
Got Cookie playing with the dog more.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, speaking of Cookie, I gotta go pick her up soon. Yeah. Okay, so anything else new and exciting for you guys you want to talk about before we wrap it up?
Yeah,
You've got the meditation mode.
So meditation
mode
is coming. That'll be released soon. The other thing we started doing is actually we will be importing all the other types of activity data from HealthKit. So if you ride a bike, you use like a Garmin or some type of thing on your bike, or you use some other app to track your workouts, that data will start to be imported. So you'll see it reflecting your activity score. I think we will be releasing a lot more of this data. So if you are a 45-year-old strapping young male, right, what does your sleep data look like versus other 45-year-olds, right, to help you sort of understand. And we will be introducing actually something to help you with all your notes, making that note process sort of taking easier, and then actually helping you with sort of correlations. So, hey, actually, Luke, did you know the nights that you went to bed at 11 o'clock, your sleep score is actually always 10 points higher than your average. Right. And here's why: you get 10% more deep sleep when you go to bed at 11 versus midnight. And, here's how much more REM sleep you get. So we will be providing a little bit more analytics on some of these correlations as well. And tie some of those correlations to things like, when you can start tagging, hey, I took CBD today, right? How much better is my deep sleep going to be?
Cool.
So that'll be coming in the app as
well.
Right.
If there's like a tagging convention in there, it's a much faster and easier way to make notes.
Yep, that's exactly.
So
cool. You'll see some of that be coming out as well.
I'm thinking of Evernote.
Yeah.
Like I use tags constantly in Evernote so I can find documents faster.
Yeah. We'll get our app guys looking at that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I think that's most of the exciting stuff. I can't talk about everything.
Yeah. And for people, I had the old version of the Ring, which was cool, but it was much bigger and cumbersome.
Yeah.
So with this generation, how much are these? Just I don't even know.
Sure, it's $299, and then I think you're going to be given. We have a discount code set up for you.
Yeah.
So,
I'll announce that in the intro and the outro and stuff. Cool. I'm just curious right now because I don't even know how much the new one is.
Yeah. So it's $299, and people get $50 off. We do have a premium color. A stealth black, a matte black, and a rose gold, and those are $399.
Ooh, damn. That's not bad for like something this valuable that adds to your life. It's funny just thinking about, because I always The way I think about anything is in the return. So if I'm looking at buying a piece of technology or whatever it is, I'm always the guy who buys the best vacuum because I only want to buy that vacuum one time. So I have like the super duper Italian Ferrari of vacuums, and I literally have had that son of a bitch for 6 years.
Nice. Yeah.
Instead of going to Target and getting the $50 one every year, right? So I think about things in terms of that, like the lifetime value and the cost per use kind of, right?
Sure.
But then also, how much more money am I going to be able to make if I spend $300 on a piece of technology that improves my life in a way such as sleep? If I give myself an hourly rate of, say, I'm $300 an hour, just an arbitrary number. Everyone should, by the way, come up with their hourly rate. That's how you
$300 an hour is $600,000 a year.
That's way too low. Thank you. See, numbers guy. That's way too low. Oh, screw that. I'm $1,000 an hour though. But let's just say, like, if I'm gamifying my sleep and I'm really like, I want to get more of those 91 scores, and I'm really working on that, dude. Do you know how easy it is to make $300?
Yeah.
At least for me, if I'm on point, I might have a $10,000 idea today because I got good sleep, and then spending $300 on something like this.
I even think it's simpler.
I think that's a really good.
I think it's simpler than that. Like, look, if I told you I can give you something that's going to help you actually reduce your, glucose levels, help you reduce rate, right? Help you be more productive and more effective at work, right? Actually increase your testosterone, right? For women, actually, I didn't even say this, and guys too, collagen repair, right? Your skin and your elasticity, right? And how good your skin looks happens. All that happens in your sleep. And so, to me, it's pretty simple. Like, would I pay $300? I'd probably pay $300 a month to increase my testosterone, reduce my fasting glucose levels, right, and help me remember a lot more stuff every day. Yeah, I'd pay $300 a month for that. And this is, you pay $300 and it'll last you a couple of years. Right?
That's funny, dude, because I'm thinking about how much money I spend on supplements.
Yeah, that's why I like this analogy of a pill. People are used to buying, dude, I love Bulletproof too, right? Like, so.
Yeah, I think my Qualia, which is probably the one thing I take. Well, not every day. I take it 5 days a week. I mean, that's one you couldn't pry out of my cold, dead hands, dude. Qualia is just the shit.
Yep.
But Qualia, I think I use my own discount code for Qualia. And I spend probably $120 a month or something.
Yeah, that's what it costs. Yeah.
It's
$1,000 a year. Yeah.
Whatever. It's still worth it, but imagine if every night I got a 91, I probably wouldn't need Qualia sleep-wise. You know what I'm saying? So it's just interesting. I like to think about things like that.
No, look, I think people are always trying to think about what value am I getting.
Yeah.
Look, whether you like it or not, sleep is something you're going to do every night. Like, I guarantee you can't go that many nights in a row without it. Like, you'll start hallucinating. You're going to do it every night.
Crystal meth users are listening, are aware of that.
Yeah. So I think it's something you're going to do.
Former or current users, I might mention.
You're going to do it every night. If you live to be 80 years old, it's about a third of your life. So think about, this is something you spend 24 years of your life doing, is sleeping. 24 years, right? Spend $300 and you're going to learn so much more how to spend that. Make sure that that third of your life is the best third. And so that 1/3 of your life improves the other 2/3 of your life. So I think for me, and for a lot of our users, what we found is, it's pretty much a no-brainer.
That's dope. Yeah, I'm into it. I'm glad we did this episode too, because I haven't done one on sleep in a while. And the products that I use for sleep, I talk about a lot. The chili pad.
Oh, temperature. I forgot to mention that one.
Oh, sleeping in a cold ass environment.
Yes, totally.
The chili pad, the bed jet, my Altera Pure Organic sheets. I think there was one other thing I used. Oh, Samina bed, which I'm saving up for.
Yeah,
the ultimate.
I haven't bought one of those out yet
from Austria. So I mean, like, I actually am not
the
just
raw optics, blue light blocking glasses.
Yeah.
So
I really invest a lot of time and energy, and I spend money on stuff that helps you sleep better too.
Dude, guess
experimenting with different supplements.
Guess how much people spend every year in the world on things related to sleep?
Let me know.
$40 billion.
What?
Right? So people are spending $40 billion, right? Because think about that. That Samina bed, a couple $1,000, right?
A couple? Oh, you mean like 10 to 30?
I forget. Yeah, they're insane.
Depending on the upgrades, but yeah.
The blue light blocking glasses, right? $100, right? The certain types of supplements, herbal teas, whatever you might take, right? Again, adds up to a couple $100 over the course of the year, right? So how do you know what stuff's actually working for you the best, right? How do you know? And so, this is a device that you can actually use and see what things are helping you the most. So it'll actually help you probably save you money over time.
Right, because you're blowing money. You're taking some supplement or some CBD or something, and it has no effect on your sleep, but you're still spending $60 a month on it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny.
Yeah.
All right, dude. Let's go to Belcampo and get something to eat.
Nice. Okay. And get cookie.
Yeah. Well, yeah. God, the dog. I just checked. I just looked up Healthy Spot where I get her groomed, and they're open till 8, so we're cool.
Okay.
I always have this nightmare when I take her to get groomed. I'm like, I don't want to be the bad dad that forgets her. And they're like, sir, we had to take your dog home because you just bounced and never came and picked her up. But we're good. Where are social media addresses and website?
Website, www.ouraring.com. So OURA ring, RING.com. Instagram, I think we're just at Oura Ring. I think Facebook
you are.
too.
Yeah. I tagged you guys.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. So our social media is pretty simple. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome, dude. Well, great to see you. And
likewise.
Thanks for coming on and talking about sleep, man.
Dude, thanks for having me. Honestly, it's been awesome to meet you. I'm glad we met at Tony Robbins back when we did in San Jose and hit it off. And frankly, I think like the stuff that you're doing on the show, the guests that you've had, I just feel honored to be part of it.
Oh, thanks, dude.
Yeah,
it's good to have you. And I got to say, I'm actually even more inspired tonight when I'm looking at that the Ozark series just waiting to pull me in. I might have a little more discipline knowing that this is something that's really valuable to pay attention to.
Totally.
So thanks for doing what you do, brother.
Thanks, man.